I was really in just that 9 to 5 grind of wake up, go to work, come back, have dinner, go to sleep, and do that for 5 days a week. I was sitting on my couch and I just felt so crummy. I thought, why am I feeling like this?
What is unique about South Asian women?
South Asian people tend to have low lean muscle mass. It's actually called the skinny fat phenotype. South Asians are also at higher risk for diabetes and heart disease than compared to any other ethnic group.
Fitness for you became this emotional reset at that moment, how your fitness journey impacted those things.
It was serving my ego. You go to an office, you dress up. It was my identity as well. I love telling people what I did. But fitness was really taking on this new passion in my life. I felt more happiness and joy in that one moment.
Today I'm sitting down with Hina Laeeque, a coach who rebuilt her life from a late night moment on the couch that forced her to admit something had to change. Her journey led her from an 18-year career in healthcare to empowering women, especially those in the South Asian community, to take control of their health and their identity. We talk about the guilt that comes with change, the unique health risks many South Asian women face, and why strength, not skinny, is the real path to long-term well-being. It's an honest conversation about choosing yourself even when it feels unfamiliar and what can open up when you finally do. Anna, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I am very happy to have you. It's really great to see you. We haven't seen each other for a couple of months where we met on a panel, and that's the reason why you're here today actually is because I really loved what you had to say, and I felt it was something that I wanted to dive into more of and share. And there was something specifically about that panel that really stood out, your story about you and the moment on the couch. And I want to talk about that. However, there's a lot of story leading up to that couch. And part of that story is just, what you were doing before that moment. So if you could just talk a little bit about, what you're doing and what was leading up to that couch moment that we're going to talk about in a bit.
Absolutely happy to. So, looking back now on my life, there's like these moments that stick out. I was always a very like bookish child. I always had my nose in books, more academically inclined, but I always looked to people that were fit and athletic, like they had some superpowers. And I thought like they have super genes. That's amazing. And that's not me. I'm not one of those people. I'll just keep my nose in the books and keep kind of marching on. And it was reinforced throughout my life. So, for example, I remember, in grade school when you have gym class and the team is split up, the class is split up into two teams and there's two captains, and the gym teacher says, okay, go ahead and pick your teammates. I was the last one picked. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was that bad. And that reinforced for me, like, just stick to the books. That's what you're good at. Athleticism isn't your thing. And there's just a few more things that happened throughout my life. Like I didn't really see anyone that was fit and active that looked like me. I didn't see it in TV or in movies or anything like that. So I followed what I call following the trajectory of like what immigrant parents want for their children. Like get good grades, get A's, check. Go to a good university, check. Get married, check. Have children, check. Get a good job, check. So I proceeded to do that when I went to university, got married, had children, and had a great job. I loved my job. Like I love the people I work with. It was something of purpose. I feel like we really were making improvements in healthcare. But I was really in just that grind, that 9 to 5 grind of wake up, go to work, come back, have dinner, go to sleep, and do that for 5 days a week. And I just remember like sitting back and thinking, like, is this what I worked so hard for? And I also had this sense of like guilt, which is also part, I think, of the immigrant child experience of having guilt that, you do these things and it's at the sacrifice of certain people in your life. But yet there's still this feeling of, is this really it? Like, is this what I worked so hard for? And I was one night, I was sitting on my couch and I just felt so crummy and that guilt as well. And I thought, why am I feeling like this? And it kind of dawned on me when I was like sitting on the couch, mindlessly watching ads late at night. And I remember my husband had went up for bed and I'm like, okay, so here I am again, sitting here just thinking about, is this what my life is meant to be? And I realized it's because I never actually focused on my own health. I never was fit. I wasn't, ever into sports or working out. And I think that was really affecting me mentally and physically. So I committed to myself, just start working out for like 4 weeks, see how you feel. I really dialed in. Like I was dialed in on my faith for sure first, and then I dialed in on my fitness. And 4 weeks later, I almost quit 3 times because I'm so sore. But 4 weeks later, I felt incredible. I wanted to like scream it from the mountaintops, like, hey, you can be a mom, you can be working, and you can still be physically fit and feel incredible. And so I did. I told everyone I knew about how to get in shape as as they could from home. I did home-based workouts. I started telling all my friends, still working full time, and then kind of coaching people in the wee hours of night when my children were sleeping.
You mentioned guilt, especially when it came to some of the things you identified, like your cultural expectations. Can you explain a little bit more about that guilt? What was that feeling? Why was that feeling there?
I think it's part of, as a second generation Canadian, I really do think it's part of our experience because if you're attuned to what parents and grandparents and ancestors have gone through, you know that their life is quite difficult. Um, and they left their homeland for a reason, right? Whether it was war, crimes, or hardship, they left for a reason to provide a better life for the next generation. So you feel a bit of this guilt, not that it's ever put on you, but they gave up all of what they know, their home, their family, the familiar like food and smells, all the nice things around culture, just to provide you with a better life. So you carry that with you because you see some of um, the hardships that parents go through as, for a second generation Canadians. So that guilt, I think it can go both ways, where it can take you down a very bad negative path. But for me, it just kind of pushed me along to like, hey, like make sure you do something. Make sure you kind of, commit to something and try to make a difference because there were so many sacrifices that were made for you to be even here. So yeah.
Was that a hard realize not just a hard realization, but was it hard to take action on that, knowing that so much of your identity was built on that stability and those expectations?
I think looking back at it, I don't think I realized how much of it I carried with me, probably just now in my, later stage. I'm in my 40s now. So looking back, I can kind of reflect on how it impacted me and my siblings as well. And I thankfully we used it for good. But we definitely carry it throughout our life. And I think if we're using it for good, then I'm actually okay with that being part of my story. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, there's always these expectations you have to look back at and understand that it does mold you, it does shape you to be kind of the person you are today, but you still have a choice in how it impacts you moving forward. It's interesting, your story is very similar to mine. I remember it was like 2016, maybe 2015. It was my daughter's 1 year christening, and I remembered taking some photos, and I knew that day I didn't feel comfortable going to the church dressed up in dress clothes, etc. And I just didn't feel comfortable the entire day, and I didn't know why. I kind of knew why, but I don't know if I was being honest with myself at the time. And I remember, you know, posing for some photos or whatnot, and then later on, when I was looking at the photos, that's when I realized why I was uncomfortable. And I looked at myself and I'm like, wow, like, I can't believe I've gotten myself to look that way. Like, I didn't look good in my eyes. I didn't feel good. I didn't look good. And I knew I had extra weight that I didn't have before. And I knew the habits that I had in terms of my dietary habits. And I worked out, but it was like I was one of those people who I think just worked out for the sake of working out, but my nutrition never complemented that. And I remember at that moment, it was at the end of the year because my daughter was born in October. And I remember it was at the end of the year. And I said, like everybody, I was like, January 1st, I'm going to totally change, the trajectory. And I went on this nutrition plan and it was in intense. It was one of those things where it was like, I didn't touch chocolate. I didn't touch like any seasoning. It was like literally bland food, but I was eating more often. and it took me a couple weeks to get used to it. But when I started to get used to it, I started to feel better. And I remember after the 3 months, I must have lost about like 30 pounds and
Wow.
totally changed. And, I would probably say midway through, people started noticing, and that inspired me even more. So I definitely resonate with your couch story because mine was a picture. It was a picture that I looked back at and I was just like, I can't believe I allowed myself to get this way. So I connect with that.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny how it's always something like little. I know Oprah calls it like the whispers. In the movies they make it like this big amazing moment and that's like the life-changing moment, but it's these little moments in life that if you pay attention, like hey, you're meant for something else. You can do better. You can be better. You can have a better experience. Yeah, if we pay attention to those whispers.
So fitness for you, it became this emotional reset at that moment, but it
Mhm.
impacted a lot of other things, in terms of your career and the things that you were stable in. So talk a little bit about how your fitness journey impacted those things.
Yeah, so I was still working full time in healthcare. I had an 18-year-long journey in healthcare, uh, worked provincially and federally and at a not-for-profit, and really enjoyed the work. Um, Again, now looking back, I know it was serving my ego. You go to an office, you dress up, and you have a big title. It was definitely my ego. It was definitely like it was my identity as well. I love telling people what I did. I felt super important. So looking back, I know it served my ego. Um, but things change. That's another like big part of life is nothing lasts forever. Things change. So I was passionate about my work in patient safety, but fitness was really taking on this new passion in my life. So I was training women and getting incredible results. I work through with women who want to go through a body transformation. And I remember one of my earlier clients, I was still working full time, and I did check-in calls over the phone. That's when we used to actually pick up the phone and call each other. So I called her to say like, how are things going, and let's go over your progress. And she shared with me how she was feeling and the inches she had lost. And in that moment, I was just so proud that I could help to coach someone into a better health state. I felt more happiness and joy in that one moment than I did in a whole year working my butt off in order to get a bonus in healthcare. And it wasn't much, but it was still a bonus. But you had to work your butt off for a whole year, like putting overtime, travel around the country, miss time from family. I kind of thought like, why am I doing this? Like this moment brought so much joy and helped someone else as well, like one to one. I thought like I really like this. So I kept going with it. And then life proceeded on. I had one child and the second and the third. And I had less time for coaching and was still working my full-time job. So I was only coaching between like 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. at night. And that kind of made me realize like, why are you working 8 hours a day to do 2 hours of what you really truly enjoy and are passionate about at nighttime? So about 2 years ago, I talked to my husband and said, I think I'm ready to leave the golden handcuffs. I love what I do, but something in me has changed. My passions have changed, and I think I'm ready to walk away. And I had this huge deliverable at work. It was a really big meeting that I had to deliver on, and I said, I'll deliver on that project. And then I think I'm going to hand in my resignation. And my husband kind of looked at me and said, like, why are you waiting? Finish the project and hand it in. No need to wait another month or so. And I thought, okay, I'll do this. And that's what I did. Handed in my resignation after that project and started coaching full time.
That's pretty incredible that you spoke to your husband and told him that you're moving into this realm of uncertainty outside of the stability you're in, and he responded that way. Did you expect that response?
No, not at all. Like, not at all. We both do a lot of self-development work and, we're, we love reading self-help books or, Tony Robbins, we're there. Like we always try to work on ourselves in that way and try to stay in a positive space. And he's great with that. So but he also knows how much I loved my work. Like I think often people will say like, I don't enjoy my boss, I don't enjoy the environment, but I truly did. Like we were doing incredible work in patient safety and improving the quality of healthcare across the country. So I loved the work, but like things just changed. The work environment changed and I had changed. And then I think just speaking with him and having an honest conversation with him and him being so supportive. And I thought, yeah, you're right. Like, why am I waiting? Why would I wait another month when I'm ready now? And so that's what I did. And I think it was a shock to everyone, but and it wasn't easy. It was because it was literally my identity for sure. Um, but I did it and I'm so glad I did.
There's two layers there that I wanted to dive into a little bit because I'm really curious about this. You have your identity as one part that you're walking away from that you mentioned is attached to your ego to some degree. And then you have your family responsibilities moving into this unknown and there's financial implications. Talk about those two things. How did you reconcile moving away from that identity as well as moving away from that financial stability?
That was a big part of it for sure, which is why I think it took me a while to get to the point to say I'm ready to quit my day job and pursue something totally different. Um, the financial piece, I think that's why I coached women sort of whenever I could, just to see like, can this be legitimate? Like, is this a real job? And I'm not trying to insult anyone, but it's like, can I actually do this as my profession? And I think slowly working with women over the time, like it was a course of over 10 years, really, said like, yeah, you can do this. This can be something that can fill up your mind, body, spirit, and still serve the family too. So I think that is why it probably took so much time. And to be honest, like when you're working 9 to 5, like there are many benefits. Like I know there's a recent trend toward like quit the 9 to 5 and be your own boss, and I hear a lot about that online now. But there's a lot of benefits to being in that 9 to 5 job. There's incredible stability. Um, you know, if you have benefits, like those are all really important, especially when you have a family. So it was really hard for me to walk away from something like that. Um, Also the identity, like I would proudly say what I did, and you feel important doing what you do, and I knew that was serving my ego. Um, but again, things had changed, and I think it took like certain nudges for me to be like, okay, you can walk away from this. It's going to be dang hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. There are, of course, things I still really miss, and I think I always will, because it was such an important part of my life. But I think I've learned a lot, and I've realized like there are chapters in life, and that was one chapter of my life, and I'm now starting another one. So it's take the good with it. Try not to try not to be too sad about it, and it's okay to be sad about it too, because there's you're walking away from something that was important. But start on this new chapter.
You mentioned there about this I guess this crave around, leaving your 9 to 5 and doing your own thing. And it's interesting because the way I look at it in some cases is that the explosion of that message I think is really built off of and targeting insecurities and disengagement because there's a lot of people I'm sure that are in their roles that are kind of going through the motion and here comes this person talking from this dreamscape perspective that leave your job and the more attention and the more credit you give that person the more that person is successful. So I feel like people have gotten a market that they see that they're trying to approach. So how does somebody discern just being marketed to and falling into a trap that maybe they're not ready or capable for versus, what, this is the right thing for me to do? Like, what are the steps that they need to take to understand if it's the right move for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly think it comes down to soul searching. Like in those quiet moments, have a quiet moment for yourself and really think about what do you want out of life? What do you want? Like it's really that simple. What do you want out of life? If in this chapter of life it makes sense for you to have that stability and that income, and support to your family, if you have young children especially, or whatever's happening health wise, just have an honest look in the mirror and say, okay, this is for now, but it's not forever. It doesn't need to be forever. A soul searching, I think, goes a long way because there's so much external noise around us and the power of influence and social media and highlight reels. It's a good idea to just kind of walk away from that a little bit and do a bit of soul searching as to like what you really want. Like I know even for myself, like I could have done that job for another 10, 20 years and I might have been okay. Um, but I probably would have maybe had some other health issues. I wouldn't have had time to focus on my own fitness and health. So it's just a matter of like, how do you want to spend your time? What do you want your life to look like? If you stay on this path, what would your life look like 10 years from now? What do you want your life to look like 10 years from now? Who do you want to serve? Like, how do you want to show up to people? I think it's really is doing a lot of internal reflection. Like I'm really big into journaling and writing things down, and it took me time. It definitely took me a lot of time, maybe 5 more years than it should have. But I had to be ready in order to take that big, big leap of faith and that big step. So internal reflection, I think, would probably be the biggest thing. And sometimes it can be maybe not right now, and that's okay.
And in your transition, you went from working a full-time job and then you started training yourself, working out, and then you moved to start training other women. What created that transition? Why did you go from training yourself to training other women versus just stopping at training yourself and just working on yourself?
That would have been the easier thing to do. Definitely. Um, I think because I was coming from a place of service and I felt like I literally had the secret sauce, and I'm not the type to keep it to myself when I feel like other people could benefit. Um, I felt like no one really showed me the way on how to be, a mom or a wife or all the things you want to be, whatever it is, and also focus on your own health and fitness. So I thought if I have that little secret, I want to share it with all the women I know and love and care about so they can feel as good as me. Like if I can do it, who has no athleticism whatsoever, not flexible, nothing like that. Wasn't I team sports? Totally admire all of that. But if I can do it as a bookish child and then as a very busy working mom, I would want other women to feel that way. I want other women to feel empowered and women who don't really have role models that look like them. So there are now, but when I was growing up and over uh, my life, there weren't a lot of fit South Asian women that I could say like, okay, that's what I want to attain. So when I was able to kind of figure it out, I thought I just want to share this with as many women as possible. And, people identify with what they see. So it just happened to be a lot of South Asian women that would then turn to me and say, hey, like, can we trade together? Can you, tell me what you did? And so that's how I started coaching mostly women. I coach all women, but mostly women of South Asian descent. Um, because they just see themselves in me, and it makes it a little bit easier to understand like what they're going through in terms of like culturally and what they're eating and all those things as well.
Going to ask you, and you kind of answered it there, why you moved mainly towards women versus just training both men and women. But you answered that question a little bit in terms of what you wanted to see for other women based on your own experiences, etc. And so, South Asian women, is there like what is unique about that community when it comes to women and their understanding of fitness as it currently is?
Yeah, there's so much there, and we're at a really exciting time where like fitness and ethnicity and research are like finally intersecting. So for me, it's super exciting as someone that has like a research-based thesis, and has like managed research-based programs in my career. So I'm happy to dive into that because there's so much to unpack there. Um, so like for South Asians, in particular. Like, so what does South Asian even mean? So, like, South Asians are people that from, a part of the world, which is very diverse, many different cultures and languages, but they're from like Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the Maldives, and Nepal. So, really broad population. But we now know more about their body composition in particular. So, we now know that South Asian people tend to have low lean muscle mass. That's number one. We have a very specific phenotype. It's actually called the skinny fat phenotype. So that means we have skinnier arms and skinnier legs, but we carry our fat in our muscles, our abdomen, and our liver. And that's visceral fat. And that is more dangerous to certain diseases and illnesses compared to subcutaneous fat, which is just below your skin surface. So that's number one. We have low lean muscle mass. On top of that, we carry our fat different. So that means we have more risk factors for obesity, for heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. This is something that most South Asians don't even know, right? Like most physicians don't even know that we have higher risks for these certain illnesses. So that's body composition. Then there's the risk factors itself. So there's some recent data that I want to share because it's just so alarming. So South Asians, we have more likely to have type 2 diabetes and obesity. We're also at higher risk for diabetes and heart disease than compared to any other ethnic group, and that's from Stanford Health. We're 6 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes compared to our European counterparts. And there's more research that shows that we're 4 times more likely to get heart disease compared to the general population. And what's really alarming, Dwayne, is that we get heart disease 10 years earlier compared to other ethnic groups. So this is so alarming, right? And not something we really talk about, but it makes sense to me now because all through my life heard about, unfortunately, so-and-so had a heart attack, or unfortunately, that person fell sick again. And so now we understand it's because we do have these unique body composition characteristics as well as higher risk for diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. So with all of these things considered, I was like, okay, there is a need. We need to change the narrative in our community. Not being physically active, that's just we can't be there. We need to push the narrative forward. Like being physically fit, dialing in on your nutrition, like it's a non-negotiable. There are just too many risk factors for us as South Asians.
How are you changing the narrative with that right now? Because it sounds like something, it's the first I've heard of it. So it sounds like it's something
Yeah.
that is the South Asian community, women in particular, are they aware of these stats?
No, not at all. Not at all. Even things around like BMI, like that's an outdated measure. It doesn't actually apply to South Asians because of our phenotype. So there's knowledge around there. Like it's actually more important for us to pay attention to like what your waist circumference is than your BMI. So that's how why I'm here. I'm here to like talk to people and say, hey, I see you. It's not easy to be, unfit and not feel good about yourself and then also have these risk factors, but there is a better way. So that's exactly why I do the work that I do is I want to push the narrative forward in our community. I want people to feel empowered to take control of their own health again and to know that there's these risk factors. Your own ancestry is a risk factor you have no control over. All the more reason to be physically fit and focus on your physicality.
And how are they responding currently to this message that, you are bringing forward now? Like, what is the response from the South Asian community of women?
People are surprised around the stats for sure. It's just something that's not widely talked about. So they're definitely surprised. But I'm a big believer in being with people that are doing the things that you're hoping to achieve. So I think once they see like someone that's regularly active and trying to, get fit and stay fit and live a healthy lifestyle, then they kind of see like that opens their eyes like, oh, okay, that like this is possible. So a lot of conversations, a lot of coaching moments. But I'm here for pushing that tide forward of like we can do better. We need to build a healthier South Asian community. And it starts individually, right? It's literally one-on-one. I truly believe the impact of one-on-one coaching people individually to understand like what their risk factors are and like let's get ahead of this. Let's be preventative over the long term.
I was going to ask you, what do you feel is the biggest obstacle from achieving this awareness and for South Asian women ultimately getting involved in fitness?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Honestly, there are so many. I think representation, big one. You work in diversity and inclusion. I know that, Dwayne. So I think representation really matters. Like again, I didn't see fit South Asian women when I was growing up. On TV or in the movies, we would see people that the stereotypical like worked at 7-Eleven or like the science nerd. We're not depicted as fit people. So representation really matters. I love now that I see, women in hijab, for example, they're in advertisements, and you see more women in the Olympics winning medals. Like that's representation, 100% definitely matters. There are cultural factors as well. Like we're a culture of like the land of food and spices, right? We love our cultural foods. Like I will never give that up. It's part of our identity. Like come by my house and, come to a party of ours. And it's just, we just love to have food. And it's no matter if it's a happy moment or sad moment, there's lots of food. And we've never really been taught what is balanced eating, right? As South Asians, there's research to show that we actually are the most sedentary population in Canada compared to any other ethnic group. And we also have the most carbohydrate rich diet compared to the general population. So that means, carbs aren't bad. I'm not saying don't eat carbs, but that means we're not eating in a balanced way. We don't get enough protein. We're not eating enough healthy fats. So there's that aspect as well of just some cultural aspects as well. And then thirdly, I'm really passionate about this. So thirdly, there's also um, I do feel like women bear a lot in our culture. I feel like we are the martyrs of the family. You sacrifice your mind, your body, and your spirit for your children. Quite literally, you do. Like we have to call a spade, right? When you go through, pregnancy and childbirth, that's a lot to go through. But yet you're expected to bounce back and, care for everyone else at your own detriment. So it's me, I feel like talking also about like, hey, it's okay to fill up your cup first. It's okay to take an hour for yourself and work out and, get away from your children if you need to just for that hour. So you can feel physically better and then pour into everyone else.
What prevents that then? Like when you think about it, it sounds like there's a very ingrained cultural expectation
Yeah.
of women in the South Asian community. And it seems as though it would be very challenging to change that perspective, especially like you mentioned, without the representation that's out there. So it's not even normalized in mainstream media where people see it and they're like, oh, okay, it's normal. So not only are you breaking or trying to break through something that isn't seen widely as being normal or acceptable, so how does one in their own home, household, or community find a pathway to this outcome that you're mentioning? Because there's a lot of benefits to it, but it doesn't seem like should like structurally there's or even communally that doesn't seem like it's set up for that person to be successful in that way.
I think it starts with one person, right? If it's one person in the home that can start focusing on their physical fitness and nutrition, dialing that in. I'm a big believer in the power of influence even in the home. So, the kids are paying attention. If they see mom and dad working out in the basement, trust me, they're going to want to be lifting weights as well. They're going to want to jump rope with you. They're going to be in your space. And how beautiful is that, right? That we could now have a generation that is seeing their parents be physically active, and that's just part of their non-negotiables. It's difficult, yes, 100%. We don't see a lot of people doing it, but I think it's slowly changing. I really do think it takes one person in the home to start making those changes, and then there's that kind of that effect of okay, that one person has done it and they're powerful influence, and they get their husband on board or their friend on board, and building a community. So I'm a big believer again in community. So actively working to have a healthier South Asian community and bringing in people that are even just curious. They might not be ready to go all in with the fitness program, but even if they just want to start seeing what other people are doing and talking about like a healthy recipe, starting off slow, getting in a walk, go for a 5-minute walk, drinking water, it's definitely building the basics. Big believer in mastering the basics and getting people to just be a little bit more mindful of what they're putting into their body and how active they are.
Side of yourself, Hannah, who's your biggest success story?
My goodness, who is my biggest success story? Hmm, that's a really good question. I'm gonna have to say probably my mother. I was fortunate that I got to see a superwoman. My mom worked full time, but yet she can make you the best Pakistani meal you've ever had in your life. She can host and bring people together in a fabulous way, and but just super smart. On top of world politics, knew the backstory to every like worldwide event. Just smart as a whip. So I was fortunate that I saw that growing up. We a family like raised by feminists. We had great debates at the dinner table. Um, and I just see how much she poured into others and really made an impact on the lives of so many people. She was ahead of her time for sure. But now just seeing where she's at in her life, I know that she gave it her all, and I love and respect that so much.
Giving it your all, and it's great that you have a role model like that. So thanks for sharing and giving it your all. I think is such an important aspect when it comes to that big pivot of the clients that you work with. What is the commonality in terms of their challenges or obstacles, and how have you helped them, or what have you seen that they've done to navigate through them?
I think the biggest challenge is staying consistent. So there's a lot of people that are like gung ho for the first 2 weeks and like I'm never gonna eat chocolate again. I'm gonna go all in. uh, and they're really consistent. And then life happens. Things taper off. Someone gets sick in their house, or something happens at work. A deadline comes up, and then they just stop. Um, so I think that's the biggest challenge for most people is like just staying consistent. So we have a saying like correct and continue. So no judgment. Life happens, especially when you're in your 30s and 40s. There are so many things that are outside of your control in terms of pressure on your time. So just I always say like just get back on track as quickly as you can. We like to like check off even in calendars like how many workouts did you get in, and it's just nice to see visually how many check marks you get and no gaps, too many gaps between those check marks. So things like that. Get back on track as quickly as you can. Life will happen. Um, but consistency is what will help you long term. It's that starting and stopping that makes it so difficult to get to their fitness goals.
And going back to your pivot, you left security for purpose. Um, Walk us through maybe some of the challenges that you had going through that transition, because you're obviously on the other end of it. So it's easy to talk about in terms of, you made a decision, it was hard, but what were those, did you have those moments where it was like, okay, I made the wrong decision?
Well, 100%. 100%. Yes. I don't sugarcoat things. There are times where I think, oh my goodness, what did I do? And should I go back? Being an entrepreneur is a challenge in itself, and it is totally different than being an employee. Really different. As an employee, you are forced to work in a team environment. Even though I did a lot of solo work, you still are in a team environment. You still report to someone. There is someone that is accountable. You're accountable to someone. Someone else is accountable to you. There are really big differences between being an entrepreneur and being an employee. So um, I was at the point where I had felt like I kind of I knew the wheels of the like that of that machine of how to work in that, and I had mastered it. Right, I was there for 18 years, so I knew how to do it really well. And I'm a doer. I take action. So I was quick. I was a no nonsense person. Let's get stuff done type of thing. And I thrived under that. Right. So I worked in a very entrepreneurial type of environment, even in my day job, and it worked. And then being now as an entrepreneur, everything is on you. You're the marketer, you're the office manager, and you're also training, making the programs, you're a content creator. There's so many different hats to wear. So sometimes, especially in the beginning, I thought, oh my goodness, like this is overwhelming. What did I get myself into? And I was so slow at even doing my tasks because there was such a high learning curve. So um, I'm not going to make it sound like it's all, easy and it was a simple transition. No, of course, I still think about that last chapter in life. Of course, I would. I did it for so long, and there's moments of that life that I really, really enjoyed. Um, but this is something that, I'm now committed. I want to pursue it. I want to make this happen. And I know that there's going to be some tough times as well. Um, but I'm not going back. It's something that I'm super passionate about, and I believe in the cause for sure.
But you did this. Yeah, I can imagine going back now. It'd be like, okay, you did this and moved towards a market that isn't really well known for fitness. Like when you think about the South Asian community, like that must have
Yeah.
been even more challenging because it's not like you're walking into something that was, you know, pervasive or really popular amongst like, you know, the fitness industry. So that alone, I could imagine must have been like very scary for you to take that step, knowing that there's a market here that you're trying to draw attention to and at the same time trying to, you know, build a career out of. So that must have been difficult. What was the, I guess, the unique selling point, you know, to really focus on the South Asian community, a very niche market when it comes to the fitness industry specifically, and leaving something so gigantically stable?
I think it's the potential for impact. So I'm a really principle-based person and purpose-driven. And I knew that if this is something I could get going, I could impact a lot of people in a meaningful way. Um, I'm a person of faith, so I know my time here is limited and, this is temporary. I truly do believe in leaving this space in a better place from where I found it. And what better way than to impact people one on one with their own health, which affects them every single day. So I think because I really focused in on purpose, and I hope that comes out authentically with my clients, that I'm here to serve them. I'm here to support them and guide them on their journey so that they can breathe a bit easier and live a healthier life. Um, I kind of compare, like, reflecting again on the years past. Before, I was kind of working more on like the macro system, big organizational impact. And now it's micro. I'm more like one to one and heart to heart. And that's what serves me as well right now.
In your one-to-one coaching, and if you could think about somebody that you've seen make some big strides, what was that journey for that person? Where did they start? What was the middle like, and how are they doing now? And what was your role in that?
Yeah. So I work with a lot of working moms. So one person that comes into mind, she's a mom of four, works full time. She is in education. And she said to me that she just has gone too far along a journey that she needs to put a halt on. And she just wants to feel more confident as a professional working woman. And I was like, we got this. No problem. We can do this. And I'm not about like quick fixes. So I told her like it will take some time. Um, she has, over 20 pounds she wanted to lose. And I said, we will do this. And you will feel confident. And we made a visual of her presenting at a conference and feeling fantastic, looking fantastic, feeling fantastic, and being the most physically fit she had ever been. Um, and because she's a type A personality like me, if I hand her a plan, she'll follow it to the T. So that was beautiful to work with. And she did. She worked out 4 times a week. She did it from home with basically dumbbells and a bench. She committed to those workouts. She really dialed in on her nutrition, really learned about macros, and committed and did incredible. She's lost over 25 pounds. She's lost 21 inches. And she has now presented twice at conferences on education and sent me pictures of her looking fabulous and super confident. So super proud of her. Her children are now watching, her husband's watching, and I know she's impacting them as well in terms of how they're eating and building a healthier lifestyle. So I was thrilled for her that she was able to do it, and she's still going. Like she's not done yet. It's now become her lifestyle. It's something I say to all my clients. Like, I just want this to be part of your lifestyle. This is who you are. That you work out for focus on your physicality and really dial in on your nutrition. And it's just beautiful to see when it all comes together, and it's like they get that pep back in their step. They feel like, yeah, this is the life I want to be living.
What's the benefit? Because there's not a lot of time I would think a mother of four would have, and mothers with one children or even, you know, more than one children, I find will struggle with that due to responsibilities, you know, obviously managing the household, their child, etc. like what's the benefit of going through the uncomfort, the uncertainty, maybe the sacrifice where you're starting to put yourself first, even though that there may be some guilt aligned with that. But what's the benefit coming out on the other side for women to kind of travel through that journey, even though it may seem as though they're missing on opportunities like raising their child or taking care of the home or their business or their work, etc.
There's so many. I could go on and on. You physically feel better. You sleep better. You're nicer to your kids and to your family and your husband and the neighbor, across the street. You get that pep back in your step where you feel like you want to wake up in the morning and like conquer the day, right? You mentally feel so much better. You feel more focused. 100% it's hard. And like I say to my clients, like it's choosing your heart, right? Like being unfit and that miserable person on the couch that's thinking, how did I get to this point? That's hard too to be not happy and unfit, but still have to go through the motions of life. It's not easy to get in shape either. That's also hard to make those sacrifices, like you mentioned, and to dial in and carve out that, 40 minutes, that 1 hour of time for yourself. That's also hard. But choose your heart. Which one would you prefer? Which sacrifices are you willing to make to get to that point? It's not easy. 100% it's not easy. Starting is definitely the most difficult part. But it's so beautiful in the end when you can continue to focus in on your health and fitness, and it's definitely worth it. No one regrets a workout. No one.
What was the hardest part for you?
Um, I think there's moments where you even doubt yourself, like, why am I doing this? Does it even matter? No one's paying attention. When you get to a certain point in your life, no one's really watching over you, right? Like as a student, the teachers are on you, professors are on you at work, your boss is on you, like someone's kind of always watching you. But then at a certain point in your life, you're kind of on your own. So it's like no one's really watching. I don't know if anyone truly cares. So why stick with it? Um, but you have to do it for yourself. I think it's knowing that there's a better way, and sticking with it. There are still times where, of course, like I don't want to work out and I don't want to focus on certain things. But I have a new goal now. I want to be lifting weights with my grandchildren one day. I want to be teaching them how to use a barbell one day. So the goals change. We change and the goals change. So it was before like, be active for my kids and we're there. Now looking forward, it's let's be active until we have grandkids one day.
I always firmly believe that the fear of change has to be smaller than the fear of staying the same. And, when I think about that, fear keeps people from moving forward. And that fear of staying the same has to be so great. You know what I mean? It has to be so great. And you're like, just like, oh my goodness, like I just can't stand the way I am right now, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever. I got to make this change, even though this change is scary. It's easy to stay in the spot, but it's not as scary as where I'm at right now. So it's like, I always think, and it's sad in a way though, but fear is probably one of the strongest motivators, I think, for people. Um,
I agree. Fear and
yeah,
pain. I would add pain to that
fe-
too.
fear and pain, right? Because it's easy to, imagine pleasure. It's easy to imagine not being afraid, but it's taking the action because it's in that unknown. And I think our brains are always designed to keep us safe. Part of that safety is not venturing into fear. So if your brain knows that being in this space is more fearful and more scary than actually being in that space where you want to be, then that's that first step. And I think it's a lot about manifesting. It's about thinking about where do you want to be? What does that look like? Why do you want to be there? Who's going to benefit from it? And, think about yourself, right? It has to be an intrinsic motivation. Who else is going to benefit from it? How are you going to show up for people because of this change that you've had in your life? How are you going to show up for your partner, your family, your kids, your friends, your work, etc.? All those things are so important. And I like what you said earlier about, just really thinking about, what's your purpose? And having time to really reflect on purpose, I think, is one of the things that a lot of people maybe may not have time to do. Maybe they think it's very woo woo. So how do you make purpose pragmatic Like if I was to be someone who said to you, Hannah, yeah, I think that's woo woo stuff, purpose, etc. We just have responsibility and we just have, goals or outcomes. Like, how do you make purpose more pragmatic to everyone?
I would love to ask them tough questions. How do you feel? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Are you really crummy and grumpy and not too nice to be around? Or do you have joy in your life? Do you feel fulfilled? Um, do you know do you feel tired and exhausted at the end of the day in a good way? Or are you tired and exhausted because you're doing things that you don't want to do? I would ask a lot of tough questions. I'd be really curious, like what's happening in your life right now, and where are you hoping to go? It's We have this one life, this one beautiful, big, messy life. What do you want to do with it? Yes, we have responsibilities. I get that 100%. Trust me. I know there are factors beyond our control, but I think what I really want to push people to see is that everything is temporary. Nothing will last forever. So this moment or this feeling is temporary. So what do you want to make of it? It still may feel kind of woo woo to people, but I'm all for it. It's okay. Let them think it's woo woo and go through those tough questions. I'm like, how do you actually feel? Like, how do you feel when you wake up? Like, do you feel good? Are you excited for the day? Or are you like, oh gosh, here I go again. I have to meet with that, ridiculous colleague one more time, who's going to get me all worked up and then do that again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to Friday. Like asking those questions. How are you actually operating in your life? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating others around you?
What role does community play? Because I can imagine a lot of these things that people are trying to achieve, especially people that you're working with, need social support, communal support. What role does that play?
Reading's a really big one. So I love having community around me. That's something that I also strive to build and foster. So I do have an online community that I support and work with, and also do group coaching. So we do it in a group setting where we meet every 2 weeks and go through our goals together. We talk about our wins and not maybe not perhaps our wins over the last 2 weeks. Um, there is a lot of strength in bringing people together to learn from each other, and they can vent if they need to, or share as they can, and different people from different, places in their own journey. So community to me is really really important. So I try to tap into that with building my own community, with being out of the community and talking to people, whether it's students or at local community centers, around the importance around fitness and staying active, and then also doing community events. So that's something I'm really focusing on for 2026 is community events. So I'm really super excited about that as well. Bringing people together physically in the 3D, as kids say, so that they can actually bond and connect and bring people together that are like-minded. Because you can do so much alone, but go so much further together. So that's one thing I'm really excited about for 2026.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
What's it like, Hannah, training with you, working with you? Like, take us through what that experience is like.
It's amazing. um, I am so we really fast foster on the fundamentals, the basics, mastering the basics. So we don't follow any trends or any influencers. Like I'm a big believer in science and mastering the fundamentals. So I do a pretty thorough intake process. So I really try to understand what people's goals are. What are they eating? What does a typical day look like? What are they hoping to achieve? If I have a magic wand, what would their day look like? So we really dive into that. Um, I want to meet them where they're at. So if they can only do 3 days at home and that's all they have, great. Let's start there, right? We'll start where you're at. Um, and then we progress from there. So I'm a big believer as well in data and collecting data. So we do a lot of measurements and pictures and tracking things over time, over 2 weeks, so that they see progress. So sometimes we're our own worst critic But the numbers don't lie, and we get a full picture. So we track data over 2 week increments, and I keep challenging them and pushing them. One of my favorite things to do is coaching women to lift heavier, because that's something that we also don't tend to focus on in our community. They tend to shy away from the heavier weights, and we do a lot of coaching and training around progressive overload and lifting heavier, and why that's important for your health, and why it's important to build muscle mass, because there's also a lot of women that just want to be skinny, and that's part of what they grew up seeing, and they see that as the epitome of health. And so we talk about, no, why you need to put on muscle mass, and why you need to dial in on your nutrition, and eat your protein, your healthy fats, and your carbs. So I really do think it's more comprehensive, where we talk about not just the nutrition piece, but the training piece and the mindset piece. And we bring that all together in the community as well. So you get more of a comprehensive program where we dial into the main facets of your life that will help you to get healthy and fit long term, where you can make this your lifestyle.
You said skinny and that
Yeah.
versus that strong thing. So
Yeah.
I know this is a big kind of misconception among the fitness community in general. So with women in particular, talk a little bit about that. What are those, those misconceptions that are mainly spoken about when we talk about skinny versus strong?
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely a big one, especially like children of the 80s and 90s. Um, we saw a culture of very thin women in like TV and movies and advertisements. Um, yeah, I still have those images in my mind of what I used to see, and it's just this kind of this little subtle influence of, skinny is beautiful, skinny is what a woman needs to look like, petite is the way. And I work with a lot of smart, brilliant, intelligent women, but they like in confidence will say to me, "Hey, I just want to be skinny." Um, and I find that's so disheartening, because as a trainer, as a coach, skinny doesn't necessarily mean healthy, right? What health comes from is strength. So muscle mass is more metabolically active. And that's what will lead you to be able to actually eat more food and have better posture, um, and have a, improved physicality, and be able to go about your day without feeling so tired and burnt out by the end of the day. Like I was when I was on that couch, because I had literally no muscle strength. So um, this is one of the narratives we really need to get over in our community, is strong over skinny. There are women that still just say to me, I just want to be skinny. But that's not necessarily healthy. Having muscle mass on you is what will lead to strength, and that'll lead to health. We also know about sarcopenia, which means like by the age of 35, everybody's losing their muscle mass. It's a natural progression of losing muscle mass. For South Asians, we already have low lean muscle mass. So all the more reason to be proactive and build that muscle for long-term health.
What would be one thing if you could snap your fingers and get this information out to the South Asian community? What would be that mechanism? What would and I guess what would be that one thing you'd want to put out there?
The one message I would want to get out there is that fitness is one of the best vehicles to feel empowered in your own life, to take control back of your own life, to feel capable to make decisions that'll best serve you and those that you love.
Awesome. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you want to touch on?
We covered a lot. um, just that I feel we really need to keep having these conversations that being taking the time to be physically fit is not selfish. Maybe to the outside world, perhaps it looks selfish, but let that be, and focus in on your own health, so that you really feel like you have the physical fitness to go about your day and take care of yourself and your loved ones, because I feel like life just gets more and more challenging. There's more more balls thrown at you, more hardship that comes your way, aging parents. There's just so many things that will happen throughout your life. And you need to be on your A game. And I feel like physical fitness will get you there.
Beautiful. So this is the part of the conversation where I have the guests read their letter to their former self. So I'll give you that space.
Great. Thanks. I did give this some thoughts. I'm going to read a letter to my former self. Okay. Dear Hina, I see you. I see you trying so hard to do what is right, to lead by example and keep going. My dear child, take a breath. Don't worry so much about the future that you forget to see the beauty right in front of you. But at the same time, dream big and just go for it. Be with the dreamers, the believers, the doers, and not the naysayers. Right now, your stage of life may feel so permanent, like it will never end. I'm here on the other side of it to remind you that this stage in life too shall pass. Show yourself some grace, and while you are there, show some grace to others as well. Your time here is limited. Make the days count. By doing what you love, do it with love, and surround yourself with those that love you, who see the good in you and you see the good in them. Continue to focus on what really matters, your faith first, your health, family, and leaving this world in a better place. Now go on with it. You got this.
You got this. That was incredible. Hannah, thank you so much. This was a very informative conversation. And yeah, I thank you for sharing your story and your mission.
Thank you for having me, Jane. Appreciate it.